Has someone ever challenged you to something that they didn't know who are an expert at? My dad was into video games before they were really a thing. He had a Magnavox Odyssey, Intellivision, etc. In the 80s, you could rent Nintendos and games from video stores. He would do this when he would almost always take in at whatever game. I didn't see him that much, but he was visiting and decided to rent one and the game Double Dribble NES basketball game. It was pretty new at the time, and he knew I didn't really like basketball. He played it all day while I was in school, and when I got home, he challenged me to a game. The look on his face when his 10-year-old son beat him by 20 points or so was priceless. My friends and I basically rented every game when it came out, and I had played this one a lot. I mean, it's sports, but it is still a video game. I was good at games. Karma time is now my teenagers can regularly beat me at just about anything. A local mall had a portable climbing wall with a make it to the top and win $100 side. The route was actually pretty challenging. As I walked by, the guy asked me if I'd like to try Nobody Has Made It to the Top. You think you can do it, buddy? At the time, I was ranked top 12 climber in my age group and kind of laughed to myself. After taking my $100, I then proceeded to call the rest of my climbing team, and one by one they went to the mall and claimed their $100. After the fourth person, the guy got suspicious and took the sign down. We later told him we were all nationally ranked competition climbers, and he got a good laugh. The company who owned the rentals was the one who lost the money. He just worked the booth and wasn't the one who lost the prize money. Wasn't me, but there's a story about an old geotechnical engineer who used to work for the company I work for. Several senior staff had to attend a meeting with a client, and some government regulatory staff were being awkward and not approving the design. This geotech guy is pretty much quiet the whole meeting. Throughout the discussion, the government guy keeps referencing this research document and shooting down anything anybody suggests. Near the end of the meeting, geotech asks government guy if he has the research paper with him. He responds yes and places it on the table. Geotech asks government guy, who was the author of the paper, then slides over a business card. Turns out it's geotech's own paper that government guy has been referencing to defend his argument. Government guy went bright red and apparently approved the design the same day. Do you know that I give you money for uploading my videos to TikTok, and the one who gains the most views in a month gets an extra $1,000? More details on my Discord server, link in the comments. My nephew challenged me to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate once. Super Smash Nephews. We had a golf workouting and he challenged me at golf. Now, I've played golf my whole life. I also played in high school and have played at public courses every year since. He did not know this. The first hole, he gets to witness a 200-yard drive down the middle. He tries to play it off like I got lucky, but no, every hole after that was the same. He drank a lot after the first couple holes. He, to this day, refuses to say I won because we didn't keep a scorecard. I was visiting Kyoto a couple years ago. I'm an American, and my wife and I walked into a tiny bar which had 5 people in suits laughing and talking in Japanese. We instantly knew that this was not a tourist bar and felt pretty out of place. The bartender spoke the most English, so I asked him what his favorite shochu was, and things got a little more comfortable as we drank, and the whole bar tried to talk to us. Someone mentioned Mario Kart, and I said, yeah. So the bartender points to an old Super Famicom in the corner, and apparently I have accepted the challenge. I smile to myself, and my wife thinks it's funny because I used to have some skill at this game. Bartender selects battle mode, and the guy is fucking phenomenal. I haven't played in a few years, and he buries me in less than a minute. The whole bar is laughing, and I'm a little stunned. We're on to the second of 3 rounds. I destroy him. 3 balloons to 0. Everyone cheers except the bartender. 2 shots were put in front of me, and I throw one down. Round 3. We're down to 1 balloon each, and I swear it's the longest battle round of all time. I'm sweating. Shell dodge, shell dodge. I have him in my sights, and I fake. I miss. The shell bounces off the wall, and I self-go. The crowd goes wild. So that's the story of how a self-proclaimed Mario Kart expert embarrassed himself and his country in a small bar in Kyoto. We drank a lot and made a lot of great friends that night that we'll never see again. I'm not a great swimmer. There was a time when I would do laps for literally hours. I would go slowly to make sure that I had the energy to do the time I wanted to. This kid challenged me to race. I left him so far behind it was funny. He thought he was about to humiliate me in front of his friends. Non-swimmers who know nothing about technique are an absolute hoot to race. Beaten my fair share of buddies who are quick swimmers and didn't know I raced competitively and went to state finals. I refuse to get in most pools now, and so they think I'm scared to swim. I just hate the memories. Not me, but my brother best friend. We were in Baltimore for a baseball weekend in 2009 and hanging out at a bar across from Camden Yards. They had a Silver Strike bowling video game. At our local bar back in Boston, we had one as well. I'm decent at the game, but my brother and buddy were fucking amazing at this game, bowling 300 games and whatnot. So two dudes are playing this game and drinking. We asked them if we can play when they're done. They asked if we want to play them. We said sure. My brother and buddy destroy these guys, like it wasn't even close. These dudes said it was a fluke and they wanted a rematch, but this time for a round of beers. Again, Annihilation City. But they kept wanting to play to eventually win a game. No lie, after 13 rounds of beers, they finally gave up. They were great guys. We saw them the next day at the same bar, and they walked up to us with beers in hand already and said rematch. To this day, we still hang out with them whenever we go to Baltimore, and to this day, they have never won. I'm really good at archery. My friend and I rented him a bow at the local range, and he wanted to bet me beers for every round. I told him repeatedly, no, you will not win. He could probably get lucky if we did one arrow offs, but he wanted to do proper 3 arrow rounds. He insisted. I drank for free all night. Just graduated as a teacher, and I've been working as a casual relief teacher. I play lacrosse, which is a small sport already and even smaller here in Australia. I tried out for the last World Cup team and made it to the final cut. I was team teaching with another teacher who worked at the school. Before the period, he spoke to me and said, "Hey mate, we are doing lacrosse today. It's a bit of an odd sport and hard to teach, so just wait over there and then you can just help with supervision and discipline," then walked off. Being a CRT from an agency, didn't really know how to speak to him or speak up. I tried to speak to him and say that I play, but he didn't give me a second, so I just listened and did my thing. Few minutes into the start of the lesson, I grabbed a stick and ball and just started to work my around the class, giving them pointers and hints. The way he was teaching was completely incorrect, and I didn't want to say anything, so when the kids broke off into groups, I kinda just taught them correctly. He pulled me over at a drinks break and asked how I knew so much or good at perform the skills. I told him how I play lacrosse and my playing history. He asked why I didn't speak up and say anything, and I said I tried to tell him. Anyway, I ended up running the rest of the class and even ended up sitting down with him and going through the correct and easier way to teach the game and skills. Not a physical challenge, but I sell building materials for a living. Think Home Depot, but for guys that build skyscrapers and stadiums. There has been many occasions where an old man with zero construction knowledge tries to lecture me on what I do for a living. Guitar Hero. That poor bastard didn't know what he was getting into. He suggested we play and was making joking comments about how he could totally beat me. We played on Expert and I absolutely demolished him. My man was even struggling to hit the orange notes some. Everyone thinks they are amazing at Mario Kart. They used to be good as a kid and think they still are. I played 2 to 4 hours every day in undergrad. A couple years ago, I raced in local and school tournaments and won most of the time. I was within seconds on several course records. I have every course memorized and know exactly when to brake on every turn. I don't play much anymore, but anytime somebody sees my Mario Kart painting, I won it at a local tournament, they tell me how amazing they are. I'm happy to absolutely destroy them. It's an otherwise useless skill. A neighbor on my block in Brooklyn challenged me to a pizza bake-off. I recently catered pizza for my daughter's school, and word got around the neighborhood my pizza was pretty darn good. My first thought was, this guy is a Brooklyn native, my pizza will be compared to his. But there was something about him bragging that I couldn't resist the challenge. He talked up how pizza was in his blood, how his dad ran the pizza place around the corner years ago. I remained silent and let my skills answer for themselves. I got a buddy to let us use one of Baker's Pride ovens at his restaurant. We even had total strangers try our pizzas. Every last person chose my pizza over his. I never mentioned to him that I've worked in pizza places almost every day for the last 30 years. I never mentioned that when I'm not working at a pizza place, I'm making pizzas at home at least once every 2 days. I never mentioned that at 9 years old I knew that I wanted to be a pizza man. Here I am 45 and getting ready to start my own pizza business. Someone at a bar bet me there were only 30 days in a particular month. $20 if I could prove them wrong right then, pre-cell phone days. I was born on the 31st of that month, showed them my driver's license. Co-worker, I'm pretty good at running. I run every day. I could probably beat you in a marathon. They didn't know I used to be a pro runner. Ran under 14 minutes in the 5K, sub 29 in the 10K, and under 15 hours for 100 miles on trails. Won a national title even. So I agreed to run with them and jumped in the local marathon with no training. I took the prize purse and made myself a few $100 and took everyone out for beers with it. Was an interesting next Monday at work. I was a competitive swimmer for 14 years, including 4 years of NCAA, but on the shorter side so people don't assume I was any good. Was at a friend's house on a lake one summer, and a macho guy challenged me to race to a buoy in the middle of the lake, to prove something, I guess. The lake is deceptively large, about a half-mile across, so I warned him that if he isn't a strong swimmer it could be dangerous. He was running out of gas after about 2 minutes, so I offered to let him off the hook, but he insisted he would finish. I went to the buoy and was swimming back when I found him floundering, so I lifeguard swam him back to the house. His ego took a deserved hit that day. One had a mate that would play Call of Duty with me. I usually beat him in a level, but he occasionally would maybe win or at least get close, but then we played a different game. Motorstorm Apocalypse. I was a legitimate top 10 player on that game with multiple one-time attack times it set, and he had just started playing through the offline mode and was winning the races, so he thought he was good. I warned him, but he insisted on a level to show off his skills. 2 minutes later, I've lapped him on a 3-lap race, and he's quit the race before he's finished due to the embarrassment of not being able to finish, because there's a 1-minute timer on the end of the race where anyone that hasn't finished doesn't get to finish. He never played that game again. While not a pro, I'm pretty darn good at poker. The church I was at had a poker night and was just gore to watch. They insisted I join the 25-cent game, came home with $200, and they decided to never have a poker night again. My wife and I were taking an evening cruise for adults in Portsmouth Bay. The ship drove around the shipyard where my submarine and several others were stationed. My wife and I are having a quiet drink when a really loud know-it-all starts spouting misinformation about each submarine we are driving by, calling them all the wrong class, wrong names, etc., when he literally points to my submarine and says, "And that is a 637 class." My wife finally speaks up and says, "Actually, that is a 688. The guy gets all gruff and says, "Well, how would you know?" My wife smiles, hugs my arm and says sweetly, "That's my husband's submarine. It is the Minneapolis St. Paul SNN 708. He turned beet red while his date laughed. When working as a teacher, I'd beat a lot of students in Pokemon battles, cause they didn't think of me being like 15 years ahead of them in fighting experience. Noobs. My landlord tried blaming me for damage to the kitchen cabinets, but didn't know that I'm in construction and am very familiar with home building codes. They placed the cabinets too close to the stove and the glue that held the laminate had melted. My office announced a laser tag team building event 2 weeks after I played in the laser tag Ultrazone National Championships, which were an actual thing in 1997. Went with a big group of college students to a bar. I was challenged by a cute little girl, and by that I mean she was maybe 95 lbs, 4'11", to a drink contest with a pint of beer. I'm 6'0", 200 lbs, so I just chuckled and agreed to it. It seems like I had just enough time to tilt my head back to start chugging when I hear her empty glass hit the table. Turns out she had the ability to just open her throat and pour the beer down. We dated for about 6 months after that. Seriously. Chess. I'm a chess master. I think when people hear that they're like, "Oh, he's really good at chess," but what it means is that I've played in international tournaments and beaten other masters, and some governing body has given me a title. Anyway, I get challenged a lot by friends who think they're pretty good. What they don't realize is that your average pretty good player is getting destroyed by your average tournament player, and your average tournament player is getting destroyed by a master. Similarly, when fluoridating the drinking water in my city came up for a city vote, an anti-fluoride guy and a retired dentist had a radio debate. The anti-fluoride guy is paid to go to affected communities and convince them fluoride is harmful. During the radio debate, he keeps referencing this one study. It concluded that fluoride is harmful in any concentration. After the umpteenth time the guy had brought up this study, the dentist said, "You know, I've read that study." He said that actually there were 12 researchers on that study, and only one found anything harmful about fluoride. Those other 11 researchers actually all agreed his research was biased and should be taken off the study, which he was. The study concluded that fluoride in drinking water concentrations is not harmful. The dentist said to the anti-fluoride guy and that one researcher, the one who got kicked out of the study, "It was you." If you haven't watched my other videos, then be sure to watch this one. I bet it will amaze you. Or you can watch all our videos in a row in this playlist. Write your stories in the comments, subscribe, turn on the bell, and go to our Discord. There we give you money for uploading our videos to TikTok. You uploaded, you gained views, you got money. Link in the comments.